Hi everybody, welcome back. So last video we looked at the different factors that influence tourism and people's decisions to travel and where they're going to travel to. So we know that there are lots of reasons why people travel, and so there are lots of different needs that people have. So what we're going to look at today are the different types of tourism in Australia, so the different groups of people that visit us and how we can best cater for those people's needs. So here in Australia we cater to several different markets, and people from different markets have different needs, so they need to be considered differently when we're thinking about what kind of tourist services we're going to provide. So you have two types of markets. You have geographic markets and you have special markets. So the first one we're going to have a look at is geographic markets, and that is of course based on where the tourist originates from. And you can see our main people that we attract come from these countries. So the first one that we attract are people from the Americas, then we have Europe, then we have New Zealand, and we have people from Asian countries including China, Japan and Korea, and South and Southeast Asia. Now the other category that we have is the special category, where you need to make special considerations for the certain type of travel that people are after. So we have the cruise industry. We have a fair few cruise ships come through Australia, not heaps, but we have a fair few. We also have the experience seekers, so people who want to immerse themselves in the culture. And of course we have the young people or the youth group that comes through Australia. So the first group of people that we're going to talk about are people from the Americas, and this includes the USA, Canada, and also South America, so all of this down here. That's what we talk about when we're talking about people from the Americas. Now, Tourism Australia has actually done an extensive survey to find out what people think about Australia, and they have split that up into where people from, so we know what people from different areas think about Australia. So people from the Americas think that Australia is a safe and secure place to visit. It has beautiful natural environments with friendly locals and great swimming beaches. And it's also got great value for money and good food and wine. Now, the important thing to take out of this is we need to think about what people from the Americas prefer to experience on their holidays so that we can cater those services to them. So people from the Americas have told the survey that they prefer experiences that include wildlife, meeting these little guys here maybe, coastal or harbour settings, and the rainforest. So people from Europe gave similar responses as to people from the Americas. So to people from Europe, Australia is considered to be safe and secure. It's considered to have a beautiful environment, friendly locals, and it's also known for its range of accommodation. So we have lower end accommodation that doesn't cost much, and we have right up to the upper end of very expensive accommodation. We're also known for our food and wine. And again, like people from the Americas, they prefer to experience something in a wildlife, coastal or harbour setting, or they also want to visit the rainforest that we have to offer here. People from New Zealand gave a slightly different response to people from Europe and the Americas. So obviously when people are coming from New Zealand to Australia, it doesn't really cost as much to go to Australia for a holiday as it does for people from the Americas and Europe, so they're looking for something slightly different. So to New Zealanders, Australia is known as a family-friendly holiday location, and different to people from the Americas and Europe, they actually want to come to Australia for shopping and food and wine. So that's very different to what people from the Americas and Europe said. People from America and Europe wanted a highly experiential holiday where they experience the coastal, harbour settings, wildlife, whereas people from New Zealand have a higher preference for shopping and food and wine. Now again, people from Asia had a slightly different response, and the survey from Tourism Australia was actually broken up into sort of the major groups of Asia. It wasn't just Asia, so we had responses from China, we had responses from Japan, and we also had responses from Southeast Asia. But I'll just talk quickly about Japan first. So in Japan we're known for our clean cities and good infrastructure. and they prefer the usual wildlife, coastal setting, and shopping as well. Now, if we talk about China, China was again slightly different. In China, we're known for our beautiful natural environment, spectacular coastal scenery, and interesting wildlife. Now, the interesting thing to note about China is they preferred more niche activities such as fishing, diving, golf, and surfing. So, when setting up these sort of things, like fishing tours, like surfing schools, diving tours, and golf tours, your target market is probably going to be a Chinese tourist. Now we're going to start talking about the special categories of tourists that come to Australia, and one of those is the cruise industry. Now, the cruise industry has grown from about $364.5 million in expenditure to $440 million. And so that is a huge amount of money that is getting pumped into our economy by the cruise industry. So we need to consider what the cruise tourist wants and set up those services so that we can make the most out of this $460 million that's going to be pumped into our economy. So firstly, we need to consider where the people on the cruise ship mainly come from, and they mainly come from North America, so that's United States and Canada, followed by the UK in Europe. So you can generally think that they'll have the same opinions that we discussed previously of people from the Americas and Europe. But a special thing about cruise tourists is that they need short experiences close to the port. So usually they only come into the port for a day and they go on excursions from the ship. So they have to be close to the port and they have to be short experiences so they can get back to the ship before it leaves the port. So things like short day tours to the zoo, short diving trips, short surf lessons are things that need to be created around port cities such as Sydney, Perth, and to a smaller extent Adelaide, so that these short experiences are able to be accessed by the cruise tourists so that we can get our piece of this $440.6 million that's going to get pumped into our economy by the cruise tourist. Now, the experience seeker is a relatively new category of traveller. So these people have the following characteristics. They're long-haul travellers, so that means they've travelled a long way, who are less affected by traditional barriers of distance, time and cost. So they've made travelling their way of life. They've travelled a long way and they don't mind doing that, and they don't mind spending money on something that they see as valuable. So travelling is a big part of their life, and they usually want to get off the beaten track and experience things outside the major cities. They want to personally experience cultures and lifestyles different to their own, and this is where Indigenous tourism can play a big part in Australia. And they also want to challenge themselves physically, emotionally and mentally. So experience seekers are sometimes what you would call thrill seekers. So they like to partake in things like bungee jumping, skydiving, swimming with the sharks, those kinds of things, because they like to challenge themselves. And they're drawn to destinations that are yet to be discovered. So this is where our sort of outback tourism can come into play, because that area is typically to be considered off the beaten track. So there is a market for tourism out in the outback. Although it's smaller, there are a special type of tourists that will come and visit that area. And so we need to think about how we can advertise to that person. So the experience seeker usually consumes their media through the internet, pay TV like Foxtel, lifestyle channels and docos, digital media and cinema. So we need to think about our advertising to cater and bring these people to Australia so that we can start to develop our tourism off the beaten track. The last type of traveller that comes to Australia is the youth traveller. A youth traveller is someone that is aged between 18 and 30 years. And the good thing about the youth traveller is they make up 26% of all people that come to visit Australia. So they're a big part of our tourism industry, and so we need to cater to their needs. Now, the things that the youth traveller like to have are music concerts and adrenaline activities, so things like bungee jumping, skydiving, climbing the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Okay, those things cater to the youth traveller. They also find nature and coastal experiences more enjoyable than food and wine. So when we're thinking about our nature experiences and coastal experiences, we're probably going to spend the money advertising to the youth group rather than the older group. And when we're thinking about our food and wine advertising, we're probably not going to target it to the youth group because it's not one of the things that they prefer. Now, the things that resonate with young people, so when we're trying to attract young people, we need to incorporate these things into our message. The first thing that attracts them is adventure, so we need to make Australia seem like an adventurous place to visit. They're also attracted by immersion, so they want to live the life of the local, and that's something that we need to offer with our tourism services. We need to make it so that the youth traveller can come and feel like they're completely part of Australian life. They also want to feel welcomed, and I think Australia does have a good reputation for being a welcoming place, and they also enjoy nature. So the key thing to take from this video is that Australia is a very, very well-known tourist destination, and we have an extremely positive reputation across the world with different travellers about being a great place to visit. We're known for our beautiful natural environments, our spectacular coastal scenery, and our interesting wildlife. And we need to remember that always when we're thinking about what kind of tourist services we are going to offer. We need to address the needs of people from different countries, and we also need to address the needs of people from special groups such as cruisers, experience seekers, and the youth group, so that we can continue to attract tourists from different walks of life and cater for their needs here in Australia.